I haven't done this in a little bit. How do I start? Oh yeah. It's me. Who am I? You know my name. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-bow. James Bond's a British thing, and this is a spy movie review, so it's appropriate to make that joke. And I like that song. Anyone to remember Casino Royale anymore? It feels like it's been forever since those James Bond movies started, or at least that batch, and they started pretty good, and bigger boom, and they're dead. Anywho, speaking of spy things, I saw a movie called Argylle, which I think is a fabric, also a spy movie. Was it made by, or directed by, Matthew Vaughn? Vogue? However you say his name. The Kingsman dude. And since he made Kingsman about, a decade ago, he's been basically chasing his little personal lightning in a bottle. Because Kingsman is a pretty good movie. It's a spy movie. It's got a lot of good actors in it. It's got a lot of fun violence and action and a fun story. A great and a all-timer action sequence in a church. If you've seen the movie, you know what part I'm talking about. And ever since that film, this director has basically been trying to make it happen again, to diminishing returns that continue today. Because you had Kingsman 2, The Golden Circle, which was mostly just, let's do the first one again, but not as good. And also some hilariously bad retcons and poor decisions. Not great. Then, let's do a prequel, The Kingsman, which, alright, it's in Russia, it's got Rasputin as your villain. That's a cool idea. I never saw it. Mostly because, for a couple of years, most people didn't go to the theaters for a while. I'm not going to speak about why. I don't know if YouTube monetizes about that anymore. And it's depressing. I'm a cat. I go meow. I'm not going to talk about this stuff. But anyways. So I never saw the Kingsman. I've heard nothing. So I apparently didn't miss much. And now we are at Argylle, which is essentially Kingsman leftovers reheated and also stapled to the back of Romancing the Stone. Another movie that most of you young folks probably haven't seen at this point. Don't worry, I'm sure there are other things. Stranger Than Fiction is another one that has kind of this idea. Our plot's kind of an interesting idea. You have an author who writes spy novels, and whoopsie doodle, something's happened to where she's now embroiled in a spy thriller because she's managing to predict spy events that have happened. I won't go into more past that because that would be spoiler town. That said, I figured out what was going on literally 5 minutes before the movie just spelled it out to the audience. I was like, I bet X is Y and Z happened. And I was correct. And at that point, I said, fuck it, and went all in on betting every other plot point for the film, and I was completely correct on every single one. That's not great. And it's a spy movie, which, when it comes to spy movies, you want a little bit of surprise, some unpredictability, some twists. But they have to be within reason. You don't want the ass pull. The ass pull, well, I enjoy an ass pull myself, because I have an ass and I enjoy getting pulled in my tail. Hee. Kitty cat butt jokes. Fart jokes. You have to make sure the twist is reasonable. It makes sense. The twist in here is fine. Mostly because the options you're presented with don't allow a lot of room for it to be anything else, and I was correct. It had to be this one particular thing, and I was right. The trailers don't give away what's happening. It kind of plays up some stuff, and made me think the feed line in the film was actually important. It's not. It's a cute cat. I want to pet that kitty cat. That is also probably the most well-behaved feline I have ever seen in the universe. That cat is present for gunfire and is stuck in a tiny suitcase carrier, which both looks horribly uncomfortable and really cozy. I need to get into one of those to see how I feel about it. But that cat barely makes a peep, while it's being on the back of people running around and jumping off buildings and being shot at all day. It barely meows. It makes a couple of meow and a few annoyed meows, and claws someone's face up once on command. That's it. Otherwise, this is the most calm-ass cat I've ever seen in my life. I was thinking to myself, is that cat gonna be a robot, or on Quaaludes, or... No, it's just a really well-behaved cat. Perhaps that is a dog in disguise, and this is actually a hidden Cats vs. Dogs sequel. Bum bum bum, there's your real twist. Yeah, as this movie progresses, we get a problem of tone, because it starts with trying to be a semi-serious action spy film movie, and when you do that, that causes the audience to have certain expectations for how a film is going to function. It sets the rules. And when you start to go out of those boundaries that you've set for yourself, it causes the problem of the movie becoming dumb. Kind of still funny, and there's enough happening that I wasn't completely bored, but things started to feel more dumb than amusing, which is not great. And because I knew what was happening, or I figured out what was happening pretty early, and, well, I thought I figured out what happened. I was like, something's up, and I was just waiting for the twist to occur, and then once we reached a point where, okay, it can't be anything but this, and I was correct, I was like, oh, well, now I gotta wait and see what happens, because I want to see what the resolution is. And that takes a while, and I was kind of bored by that point. The action scenes are at the first chunk for the first two-thirds. They're competent, but nothing exciting. They're fine. Again, this feels very much like leftovers from the Kingsman movies, to where they're like, you'll have an idea for an action scene, you'll do it, but there's no panache, there's nothing exciting. There's good music in here, just random music tracks are playing, and it is kind of a problem, because the Kingsman movie, the first one at least, and second one to a degree, pretty good music choices. They made sense in the context of the film and what was happening. This one feels like someone's hitting the play button because it's an action scene, and it's just stuck on their classic rock and 70s, 80s ballad playlist. It's just like, click, action scene, music, and we're done. And it's just like, okay. A little weird. Like, I like having the music, and these are good songs. It just feels out of place. The whole thing feels jumbled and out of place. And then once we have the twist is revealed, the main one, it turns full cartoon, which, turning full cartoon, especially for a spy movie from the Kingsman person, should be perfectly fine and be a plus, and it kind of is, but the first two-thirds of this are not a cartoon. So when it does turn complete cartoon, I don't care, and I'm mostly just amused by how silly it's getting. It's kind of like, what if you have Casino Royale, the first Casino Royale, the Daniel Craig one, is also attached to an Austin Powers type movie on the back half. That's almost where we're at here, because we have some incredibly silly-ass action scenes in the last chunk, which are very entertaining. They're not great, but they are entertaining, and they're colorful, and they got my attention because I like pretty colors and fast-moving objects because I'm a cat. Once that got going, I was at least entertained enough to stay in the theater and finish this thing. If I had watched this on TV, on streaming at home, I would have turned it off most likely. So that's my thoughts. I was in the theater, and it just barely held my attention enough to finish it. Also, I realized watching this that Kingsman had the R rating, and that was an advantage, because all the violence in that movie helps to punctuate what's happening. You have bing, bing, boom, bam, your action scene, boom, 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 bam, or something really violent punctuates the action and invests you and makes you go, ooh, that felt good. Go for another. Keep going, ooh, and so forth. This, clearly written as an R and filmed as a PG-13, is almost bloodless, and because of how cartoonish it gets, it feels like a TV edit of itself. The impacts don't have impact. There's no the major violence has no payoff. It just feels underwhelming. And And I'll give away one of the funnier fight things that you would think, in theory, would be an absolute bloodbath, but has no blood, which is a knife fight in a room full of oil and ice skating. I'm not kidding. That sounds hilarious and great and feels like what it was going to be in a Kingsman movie, but it's just a leftover and put in this. It doesn't work in here because the violence it has no payoff. It's just person slashing at people and they fall over and that's nothing, and we keep going, and it's just like, this feels like a video game cutscene, or we're barely controlling with like QTEs. And I felt nothing. It's not good. Yeah. Also, Henry Cavill is here, and John Cena in very tiny roles, which is kind of amusing. Cavill has this terrible flat top that makes his head look like a box. So, the man who was formerly known as Superman, you need to punch whoever gave you that haircut into the sun. But yeah, I know you like to throw people into the sun. It's a Superman thing. Go have fun with that. Just throw them into the sun for that haircut. Because, ooh, Lord, you don't look good in a flat top. Christ. Hell, I'll take your Witcher wig over that haircut. And hi, John Cena. You're fine. I can see you. Perhaps that's the greatest twist of all. Anywho, sorry I haven't been in videos much lately. There was jack shit that I wanted to see in January, and I was tired in December and the holidays and all that stuff, and I do have a pile of movies to get to from last year that I didn't get around to seeing. I'm going to try to work on those a little bit. We'll see. Because I don't think there's much of anything I want to actually see in the theater until March, maybe. I think there's one or two in February that look kind of funny, but I don't know if they're going to hang around long enough to even get to the theater and bother with. So, we'll see. Anywho, I'm Kanada. You will be soon as well. Like and subscribe to this channel. Follow my Patreon. Look at the porn I produce. I post it on Twitter, FA, Blue Sky, etc., etc. Oh yes, and I'm doing a special project for my Patreon only right now. Me going through every single Final Fantasy mainline game and drawing an art piece for it. That is 16 images, full color, etc., etc. You're not going to see, and I'm not going to release these things in full until they're complete. The whole thing is finished. So the only place to see them right now is my Patreon. So yeah, I'm making my way through that. It's going to be a year-long project. I've gotten 5 or 6, 4 or 5 of them done. I'm in progress with the next couple. I've got basic ideas for the rest of it. Join me there for the fun. And hey, you get to be a Kanada when you join. You will just instantly turn into me. Your dick will disappear, or your puss, whatever. You'll instantly smell. You'll have my wonderful hair, and you'll be a cat. Best things in the world. Anyway, good night. Boots.